WNBA is in the Shark Tank. WNBA facing a margin call. WNBA, is it going to be trick or is it going to be a treat? And the WNBA, is there going to be a lockout? We'll talk about that and more today on the Money Mike Syndicated Radio podcast. How's everybody doing? Hope everybody's having a beautiful morning. Great day yesterday. And, I just want to say good morning to Pete. To PD Miller, I want to tell you, Mark, good morning. Road Spirit, good morning. Jock, good morning. Frog, good morning. Lamar, good morning. Chris Braid, good morning. Good morning, everyone. This is Money Mike, and I'm going to keep it a buck and just make it as entertaining as I can, take you a little behind the scenes, and let's kind of pick up. But the questions that I have today, the WNBA, should they go into the Shark Tank? Can you imagine the WNBA going into the Shark Tank? And you got Mark Cuban sitting there, okay, and you got Mr. Wonderful sitting there, and you got QVC, you got Lori sitting there, and that would be a show. You know what? Money Mike would watch that show again and again and again, because when I looked at this, and I'm still looking at it, and the players, overnight, when I get a hold of something and I teeter with it, I got to keep thinking and meditating. Okay, what are we doing? And then finally it came to me, okay, when they were saying they want to change the leadership, right, from Cathy Engelbert. Now, Money Mike's been against Cathy Engelbert day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5. So that's where you got the fans and the members on here, guys who watch me. They're like, Mike, what are you doing, man? You were just against it. You were telling us the fix is in, right? And so now when you get to the Shark Tank, the fix is still in. The WNBA is still going before Congress, right? But Money Mike thought deeply, and I said, well, is the WNBA going to be pushing it, or is the players' union pushing it, right? Because they went to the issue of safety. When you go to the issue of safety, that's like CTE, right? Too much physical violence in the NFL. There's too much hitting. We need more padding. So now that you went to the level of safety, okay, well, there's the issue for Congress, right? And when you get to it now, the position is with the WNBA, because I couldn't find it, and then I kept asking everybody the question. Here was Money Mike's question for about a year now. What happened to the 16% that the WNBA leveraged? What did Cathy Engelbert do with that? Now, so how did my position alter? Right? Not change, but alter, because there's accountability that has to go with the thought process of Cathy Engelbert took that 16%, $75 million, and leveraged her relationships within the market, right? And then it dawned on me that the WNBA, if anyone's not aware, they've got a 50-game package with USA Network, right? So when I looked at it, I said, well, wait a minute. They got USA Network's going to broadcast 50 games. It's variant. So there's partnerships. This $75 million, right, is ballooning. It's ballooning. Now, Engelbert leveraged the relationship to get the $2.2 billion as well, right? Because you got all these partners. Now, okay, well, let's move forward now, because that's how Money Mike flip-flop, because I found out where the $75 million went. And I understand Cathy Engelbert has a funnel. I understand that there are relationships who are tied to her. Now, normally, when you get to this level, folks, and in sports history, normally whenever you're going to replace a commissioner, there's somebody getting groomed to take that job, right? So when you had David Stern, Adam Silver was getting groomed. Right? When you had Peter Talibu, okay, Roger Goodell was getting groomed to come in and take the job. Now, who does the WNBA have groomed to take the commissioner's job? So if Cathy steps out, resigns tomorrow, who's going to be there to take it? And this is why I say you can look at the Shark Tank. And there's one thing Mark Cuban said, and it was very stuck with me for a long time. He said, you're going to be in this business. He said, what you got to be? You got to be a real estate developer. Right? Because he's like, you got to buy property and you got to develop it and you got to build it. But Mark Cuban also said something really, really important. He said 10% of a watermelon is better than 50% of a grape. I repeat that. 10% of a watermelon is better than 50% of a grape. That's what you're dealing with now. So the WNBA, came and I asked a question again. I said, who negotiated this contract? Okay, now, the same, after doing due diligence, Cathy Engelbert, Jackson, right, and Gumake, right? They negotiated this contract. So what changed in Cathy Engelbert's leadership that caused this? This is why Money Mike had a concern. Because normally, if the players have a problem with safety, then you go to the players' union, and the players' union files a grievance against the league. Okay? I need to see where the players have filed a grievance. Now, here's where it gets really interesting for you. And Money Mike's just laying out a pattern, right? Because at the end of the day, whenever you get into litigation, you got to have your work product doctrine, right? And you got to have a fact pattern. So all Money Mike is not discussing, not speculating. I'm walking through a fact pattern here of what has happened, because last year, right? Last year, Caitlin took all the abuse. She was beat down. I mean, let's face it. I mean, beat down to the stage, right, that the body finally gave up, right? She's not able to function. As Kelsey Mitchell explained, her body just kind of, there's nothing left, right? And that's safety, right? So that's where Money Mike start putting the pieces of the puzzle together. So when you go before Congress, what's going to push it before Congress is the safety, right? And so the women, one thing I can tell you, like I said, I came over in 212. And one thing I do know, the women are very, very intelligent. The women are very, very smart. The women are smart enough, they don't want to deal with the women in Congress, because that's a different animal, but they're watching closely, right? And so what ends up happening is, now that you're dealing with an issue of safety, right? Now, last year, it wasn't an issue because Caitlin got beat. This year, it's an issue because all of a sudden the officials are not good enough, and it's Cathy's fault. Now, you pushed it to safety, right? So you got to look at where the bullets are coming, and you got to look at, you've got safety and you've got wages, right? That they are taking before. This is moving forward because the WNBA, it's trick-or-treat time, all right? It's margin call time. It's margin call time, meaning that if you have the investors who are not going to be on television, okay, who are for an entire year, right? That's called a margin call, because now you got to pay bills still, but they're not paying you because you're not going to be on. So the funding has got to get shifted somewhere. Now, Cathy said, I can settle this. I can close this deal for you. Whatever you want, I can get it for you. But here's the funny part about it, right? You get 30 days, less than 30 days before a lockout, and you say you don't like the leadership. And you don't like the leadership because the leadership is promoting violence. Now, this is the violence that you have called, right? You have caused. The commissioner did it, but what she did, she took the bait, right? Cathy Engelbert took the bait that they were telling her last year while they were beating on Caitlin. No, this is competition. This came from Reeves, okay, and this came from Becky Hammond, right? Because remember, Asia Wilson was talking about, we're grown women. We're grown women, right? Now look at the litigation here. Look at the depositions and all the things that got to come out, to where last year you stated these statements. Once they pulled the statements, and now this year you're saying it's violence, but you created all this, okay? Now, here's where it gets a little tricky. Because you're getting the margin call now. Now the investors want to know about their money. And you know what? In Kevin O'Leary on the Shark Tank, you know what Kevin O'Leary say? Short the stock. This was public trading. He'd say short the stock, right? Because it's total chaos. Because you cannot win without a leader. There has to be somebody at the head of the ship, right? And at the end of the day, the relationships are there. Now you brought in all the other players, right? Because Cathy was working with the NBA. So now you brought in Amazon, you brought in Stanky, okay, you got Disney involved. All these people are tied into this funnel that have actually extended partnerships with Cathy Engelbert. So now you've gotten to this stage, folks. It's trick-or-treat time now, right? Trick or treat, smell my feet. Give me something good to eat, right? So now your 30 days is about up, right? It's lockout or whatever you're going to do. I don't care if you like the leadership. And the WNBA owners, right? This is nothing new to them, right? I mean, I think it was Washington Redskins or somebody in a lockout season. Other players came in and played. That was the year that Marshawn Lynch, right? Beast mode, his uncle, Lorenzo Lynch. I played against him, right? He made the Chicago Bears as a gunner on the replacement players, but then he went on and played 10 more years in the league, right? So that's the point of attrition by looking at other athletes. There are going to be some athletes who, after the lockout, come back. They're not going to have jobs because now everything has changed, right? So Money Mike was saying, wait a minute, you don't like the safety. That's going to be the pin in it. I said revenue, expenses, right? You can kind of get your expenses under control through efficiencies. There's no doubt about it. But when you get to safety of an employee, when you get to OSHA, right? When you get to this of being safe, and what does Congress want to talk about, right? Because they're going to talk about the safety of the WNBA game. Now, if you want to pin somebody up against the wall for what they have quoted and calling it competition, then Cathy Engelbert, they got you dead to the rock, right? But they preset your destiny, right, to get you in this rock. Now, who's going to take her place, right? Because you have all these deals are on the table, all these relationships have been hedged with Cathy being at the table. Is Gwen Jackson going to take the role? Is Cheryl Reeve going to take the role? Is Becky Hammond going to take the role? Who's going to take this role? And then on top of that, you utilize, I'll say again, you utilize CaitlinClark, right? Now, when you utilize CaitlinClark, you didn't utilize her to the point that she was there, but it's very well orchestrated, right? It's orchestrated, just like the t-shirt, right? Pay us more money. Now, nobody knew Collier was going to take the stage and start talking about, okay, CaitlinClark. Right? But when they did it, it caught Cathy off guard. Now, wait a minute. Don't push smoke back at me because I've been working since day one for CaitlinClark. And if we wouldn't have had CaitlinClark, I'll tell you this, folks. Money Mike may say a lot of things to you, but if you didn't have CaitlinClark here, right? And I'm also tell you if you didn't have Angel Reese, and I'm going to circle back on those two, you'd never be talking about this. This wouldn't even be an option. You may not even have a league, all right? But here we are. Right? So now you got Caitlin name got dropped. Now here's the problem with Caitlin name got dropped. Caitlin never talks. Caitlin never talks. You know why? They're afraid to allow Caitlin to talk. Because here's what I know about Caitlin. They don't know what Caitlin's going to say. And Caitlin could drop a sound bite and tell you some things and really cut to the chase. Because when Caitlin gets going and things get to wrapping up in her and she starts saying what she wants, they don't want you to hear that. Right? Because that's going to be too much. Okay, I don't care if you strap Caitlin behind and you put her in a strap chair and hold her in a medical garment, all that around her. You start talking about officials. CaitlinClark's going to bust out of that like Superman, right? Because in fact, not an infatuation, but her dislike for officials is like no other player that has ever played in this league. There's never been a player I have never seen in the league, right, where you talk about safety, right? It's the fun part of the league, guys. You get Sophie Cunningham and Sophie Cunningham standing off with the police at half court, like, I ain't moving, what you gonna do? I ain't moving, what you gonna do? Then you got CaitlinClark behind her, like, whoa, wait a minute now, Sophie. Okay, then you got Bree, the coach, and then Sophie Cunningham don't follow no rules. So she's like, get your hand off me, what's wrong with you? Don't touch me, right? This is the Indiana Fever. Okay, and Money Mike likes the Indiana Fever. I like Caitlin at first. Then I started liking Kelsey Mitchell. Then I started liking Lexi Hull. And then I fell in love with Aaliyah Boston. I mean, nobody's going to tell me anybody's better than Boston in the WNBA. Because I seen her spank you all. I seen her do you like you've never been done. And I seen her do Asia Wilson like you've never been done before. Right? Think about this. But now, the game has moved on. Caitlin's been out. Angel Reese is over there with Itis, getting ready to make $20 to $30 million a movie. Angel Reese is gone, folks. You got Collier doing an exit interview, right? Begging for money, right? Trying to get a salary. Angel Reese ain't having those kind of problems. That's why the union The players union is not good for CaitlinClark, and it's not good for Angel Reese. The union is to equality so you can lift up the working man. Being a Teamster, right? Being with UPS, being a Teamster, you understand there's a working man here, right? That's what the union is for. But when your management, as Angel Reese and CaitlinClark are, they've already managed their careers, right? So they don't need any help. Right? So there's nothing that's going to happen in that thing right now for Angel Reese. And Angel Reese, boy, I tell you, by the time the Hollywood get old Angel Reese, because she's like, I've been working for this money, playing hard, all these basketball games. I just show up and get $500,000. That's where Angel Reese is going. And Caitlin's the same way, right? You got to understand, Caitlin does not need to play to make money, right? That's already done. And this is what's embarrassing. The players need to play to make the money. Right? And those two players are already making money. They're going to make more money this offseason than they made last offseason. So what does Money Mike tell you right in the beginning? This is a WNBA Shark Tank, right? You need Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful, right? Mr. Wonderful to take an eye look at the WNBA. And what do you think Mr. Wonderful would say? Or you need Lori to take a look at the WNBA. Right? Or what do you think they're going to say? Or the real estate, Sandy, you need her to take a look at the WNBA. And you need to have them take a look at it. This would be a great show, right? You got to understand, here's the WNBA on the Shark Tank. Okay, we got them on the Shark Tank. The WNBA is facing a margin call, right? That's where you can either pro or short, right? And on an option, right? And either way, when the date comes, if you made a bunch of money and you called it right, they're going to pay you, right? You're going to pay, you get the money, no problem. So you didn't have to have a huge investment. But if it's the opposite way, many of you have seen the movie Margin Call. Well, you know what? We better start selling some stuff because right now we are in trouble. Right? And then you're going to come after the margin call, the Shark Tank and the margin call, folks. It gets good to you now. Because now you got trick or treat you're facing too. Right? All this is coming down the pike in 1 month. Right? It's all coming down the pike. There's 4 lanes in the highway or a 5-lane highway, and they are smoking down the tracks, right? Coming to the finish line. So guess what? After you do all that, you got the Shark Tank, you got the margin call. Right? You got the trick or treat. You're trying to pass candy out for the kids. And then after midnight strikes, and guess what? You got a lockout. Right? So you got a lockout. That means no business. No business. Players are locked out. We're not doing it. No trades, no movement, no sign, no bonuses, nothing. Okay? And this reminds me of Augusta. And there was one point in Augusta, folks, I'll tell you. And the women will fight. They'll get you. One thing I learned in women's basketball, you're not going to win. The men are not going to win, right? We're not smart enough, right? The women have calculated this 2-3 years ago. We just have made it to this point, right? But they've already calculated it out. Now, because I know the men are not smart enough, there's nothing better than when women fight against women, because then it's dirty. And these players are schizophrenic. Imagine this, folks. I always laugh because one of the most enjoyable times I had a director. Her name was Coach V. So my job was to coach the team, right? But I didn't have those girls at the night. I had to turn them over to a chaperone because I couldn't deal with it. I had to go get my hotel room, couple places miles down, and I could go relax because can you imagine in a van ride? This would be the most enjoyable point to me. I got Asia Wilson, I got Angel Reese, I got Skylar Diggins, I got CaitlinClark. Let's see who else is out there. I've got Juju Watkins, I've got Chelsea Gray. Okay, I got Alyssa Thomas, I got Alyssa Smith. I got all those in a van, right? And you can, so what I learned, the boys are chilling. They got the phones, everything. Well, the girls are just they're talking. Everybody's calling it, right? And that's like, God dang, how do you guys do this, right? But in their communication, they hear what they want to hear, okay? And it was the most enjoyable time in my life, which I grew an affection for, right? Again, because Adidas didn't want anything to do with it. Why? Because there's no money in it in 2012. There's no money in it. Nobody's making any money off of women's basketball. But the most enjoyable thing I did enjoy was the women played below the rim, right? And when you get to the science of the game below the rim, it's a very exceptional game. Now, the one thing I did notice that when players started jumping and getting higher, the year I got in, it was about 212, 210, I think 2, 8, 9, 10. But they started having just a rash of ACL injuries, right? And everybody talks about players dunking and doing these same things, right? But dunking a basketball is a safety issue. And that's why I'm bringing that up, because if you dunk that ball and you don't know how to land, you're going to tear an ACL, right? And ACLs are fixable, but it's no fun, right? Because the body's not built that way. I've got a heart of hearts, right? And a lot of times you'll hear me say things, and a lot of times you'll hear me change my position, right? Okay, you got to understand, and everything's not about money, right? It's not about money. I just happen to be in business, and that's what I do, and that's what the show is, the Money Mike, where we're talking about real life business. So here's what throws me off, is a lot of the fan base has so much compassion, they keep saying, why are we talking about money? All you care about is money. That's not the point, folks. The players want the money. See, this is what got me here. Last night I meditated and thought on it, because every night I'll take what you say, I'll digest it. The players want more money. So, but the players are saying this about safety, right? And Cathy Engelbert's non-ability to protect them. That's what they're saying, right? So now, before you can get to the money, you've got to finalize your position on the safety. Then I went deeper than that. I said, well, they're blaming these WNBA injuries on the officials. So Money Mike went one step further, and I had one more question for everybody today as I get ready to close. Is the injuries because of the schedule or the physical play? Because the WNBA plays a schedule that any medical doctor would look at, and you could have several doctors report in Congress that the schedule is unsafe. See, there's another component that's sitting here, because I heard the coach from Phoenix. He said, I played 4 games in 7 nights. That's a load, folks. And that's where I got to the point where Kelsey was breaking down in the Indiana Fever, because of the rule, you can't add anybody, right? The Indiana Fever would have had to play a 7-game series with 8 players. Pretty soon, if 2 players got hurt, you're down to 6. Okay, so safety is a major concern. Which one's the higher priority for the women? Is it the safety or is it the money? I'll let the women speak on that. I thank you for tuning in, and you newcomers, man, I tell you, this is a show you want to see. I'm going to bring out the factual information, right? Now, it may not always be delivered in the right tack. You can always get me for that, and I told you every once in a while, I'll fall off the tracks. And you're right. I was 100% against Cathy Engelbert, and there ain't no doubt about it. And the reason I was, because I was confused, and this is what confused me, folks. Cathy Engelbert gave up 16% of percentage of the league to investors. Okay, and that's less than 24 months ago, right? So, I mean, maybe a little longer. I might be off on the calendar, right? But that $75 million can turn into $1 billion. Right? So I was thinking, well, where did she leverage that $75 million? Where did that go? Well, she took that and leveraged it to make these players more money. Now, in the middle of all this, and I don't know how it's going to transition, because normally, like any other businesses out there, or if they're professional services, they're accounting firm, they know the books, they know who gives money, where the money goes, but that's not here or there. Those clients are in the funnel. They're not sitting there just waiting. They're waiting in line to get through this supply chain to get it going. And that could be a lot of things that are tearing up, because if Cathy's not there, does Nike need to be there, right? If Cathy's not there, does Amazon need to be there? You got to ask yourself these questions, right? Because some of these relationships have been hedged. Now you're getting in the middle and you're saying, well, the NBA owners, I don't hear them complain. I haven't heard an NBA owner say, I don't want Cathy as a commissioner. Now, don't get me wrong. Okay, you got Dolan up there with the New York Knicks. He come out publicly, Adam, what's going on? Where's my money? You're trying to shut me out of business. I run business through my local affiliate stations. Well, Cathy just cut you a deal for that, USA Network, right? So there has to be somebody else groomed, or maybe the story will come out that Cathy is not negotiating these deals, somebody else can. But when you get your affiliate business going, it's like, the ladies, how much do you want? But now that you brought up safety, you can't move past the safety. You can't move past the wages. You can't move past the protection, okay? Because if one employee's complaint and you do not protect that employee, now you're going to get involved in OSHA. Now you got a whole bunch of things that's going on here, right? And that's what we're going to find out. It's the off season. Indiana Fever got to make some major moves. I'm going to tell you. Let me tell you about this. I'm going to tell you, Indiana Fever got to make major moves. Folks, the Indiana Fever, let me tell you what happened. And I've been working and tracking and looking and finding on the Indiana Fever. Indiana Fever, okay, I'm talking about Amy and Kelly, right? Because they got snake bit, right? You got two players, I haven't seen this in a while, that are playing in the NBA Finals that both played for the Indiana Fever, right? And so the fans, you know, I could tell you this one could hurt, right? It could hurt one day, was what Money Mike was saying when I first was talking about Alyssa Smith. I said, eventually you may have to face this player, right? So they let that player go, all right? You got to understand where Money Mike is going with this. This is Kelly and Amy. You're going to let the player go. All right, so the player now went to Kurt Miller. Kurt Miller was a bad situation. I don't know how that's going to go, because when I look at Kurt Miller, you have to understand, Kurt Miller let go of Odyssey Sims. Kurt Miller let go of Ari McDonald, right? So Kurt Miller, when I look at Kurt, and guys, my job is just pure. If there's another agenda, there's another agenda, right? And sometimes it can cost players their career, right? But getting back to this, then you got Bonner, right? Bonner, okay, with Bonner. Now, I personally said I would have did a buyout with Bonner. I would have waited and let her sit on the shelf an entire year, right? But for whatever love, okay, sometimes you get love and hip-hop up in here, right? Because love and hip-hop is really what we're talking about. They decided to just let her go to Phoenix. Well, aren't you trying to win a WNBA championship? Okay, I just want to make sure, Amy, Kelly, aren't you trying to win a WNBA championship? So if you're trying to win the WNBA championship and then you let a third player go that I did not approve, or I wouldn't have done, right? Who was that? That was Timmy Fagbenye, right? So you let three posts get out of there, right? Post, 3/4, 3.5-quarter post, or whatever you want to call it. You let them get out of there. Now you got to ask yourself, okay, the Indiana Fever, Amy and Kelly, could those players have helped you win a championship this year? I'd say yes. So the management team's got to get it right. Okay, the management team, this is a damn good team, okay? You got 4 all-WNBA players. You got CaitlinClark, Kelsey Mitchell, you got Lexi Hull, and you got Boston, and then you could squeeze a 5th in there right now. It's Sophie Cunningham, because Sophie Cunningham's going to get it together and come back. She's jacked to do it, right? So now you got to ask yourself, you got to build a bench now. And this is the hardest part for the Indiana Fever. It's going to be the toughest part. Okay, it's going to be the toughest part for them. You got 16 now. It's going to be hard. Who you keeping and who you letting go? As much love as you have for each and every lady on this team, is there room for each and every lady, or is there an upgrade option that's going to be available for you? All things are possible to those who believe. This is the Money Mike Syndicated Radio Podcast. I enjoy your comments, and I enjoy and respect and honor the privilege to come before you. All things are possible to those who believe. You have a blessed day. We'll see you soon.